floriculture. When we field, when we grow larger amounts of flowers or larger amounts of the ornamental plant in the agricultural land for the purpose of selling it in the market areas for the commercial business, it is regarded as the floriculture. So we can basically define floriculture as a branch of existence or the branch of horticulture, which is particularly concerned with growing and marketing of the flowers and ornamental plants. Ornamental flowers grow plants also concerned with the arrangement of the flowers. When we arrange the flowers in a particular pattern, in particular landmark, then it is also regarded as floriculture. As we all are very, very familiar, flowers are one of the basic needs, or flowers are the very, very important part of our society. We require flowers for varieties of the purposes. We require flowers for the cultures. We require flowers to celebrate different types of festivals. We require flowers for the parties, for the decoration, and for many more purposes. We require the bunches of flowers. So since these flowers are extremely important, since flowers are important for each and every occupation nowadays, growing of the flowers by larger number of the people or planting the flower commercially has become one of the important business in today's society. So people tend to plant these flowers, people tend to grow the ornamental plants or the flowers in their agricultural land so that they can sell it in the market areas to earn huge amounts of economic benefit. The process of planting the flower, process of planting of the or growing of the ornamental plant differs from one plant to another plant, as we all are very, very familiar. Flower or potted plants, different varieties. There are different varieties of the flowers, different varieties of the potted plants are present, different varieties of ornamental plants are present. Some temperate climate, some grows on the tropical climate, and some grows in the extremely cold climate. So basically, it depends upon the flower thing on the ornamental plants that we are growing in our agricultural land, varieties of the things should be taken into consideration. Different things should take into consideration, whether they require the artificial climates or not. Decide that whether they require what type of bedding is needed for the plants, what type of weeding is needed for the plants. Do we require the greenhouse for those particular types of plants, particular types of ornamental plants? Now, these things should be taken into consideration before we hop into the business of the floriculture. But we flowers, as we plant the flowers, as we tend to develop the flowers, we can earn huge amount of economic benefit from this particular crop itself, because flowers are basically very, very important to each and every people. Though it is a religious purpose or it is for the religious purpose, we require flower, or everybody requires flower. That is why floriculture has become one of the essential business in today's society, in today's world. We require flowers for varieties of the purposes. As listed here, the flowers are needed for different religious purposes, different activities, as well as different social activities. Also, we require bunches of the flowers, or we require huge amounts of flowers. Our varieties of the festivals, different types of festivals that we celebrate requires different varieties of the flowers. These festivals requires marigold, as well as several other varieties of the flowers are also needed. Similarly, for several cultural activities to offer to the gods, also we give varieties or different varieties of the flowers. Similarly, flowers are also needed to keep our surroundings clean and fresh. As we all are very familiar, flowers that we have different smells, different freshness, different smells, or different nectars given that flowers are particularly grown in the surrounding environment. These nectars that is given by the flowers, or these smells that are given by the flowers, in making the environment, or helps in keeping the surrounding environment very, very fresh. Similarly, if we plant the flowers in a well-managed, the surrounding also becomes very neat and clean. Similarly, the flowers are also used to make different medicine, different cosmetic products are also made by using different varieties of the flowers that are present in the market area that are grown in our agricultural land. Basically, varieties of the medicine such as the rhododendron, our national flower rhododendron, we can find 33 varieties of rhododendron in our surrounding area from the in the hilly or higher mountainous region of our country. These varieties of the rhododendrons that are found in different regions of our country, different altitudes of our country, these can be used to make the medicine. They are the very, very strong and effective medicine, but rhododendron juices. Besides this, if we have something stuck in our throat, if materials or any type of other substances get stuck in our throat, the juices of the rhododendron can easily lead from those stocking problems, the problems that is created by some food materials that is stuck inside through. Besides, there are varieties of the flowers that can be found in the surrounding area which can be used for the medicinal purposes. Because of the nature that is used by the flowers, because of the smell that is given by the flowers itself, varieties of the cosmetic products from the shampoos to the cosmetic creams can be produced by using the different varieties of the flowers that is utilized, that is grown in our agricultural land. Similarly, we can also use the flower for the decorative purposes, for the decoration of the buildings, decoration of the cars during the weddings, or decoration of the buildings, any of those, even decoration of gardens. For all those purposes, use varieties of the flowers can be obtained from the market area, can be grown in the field itself, and it can be used for the decorative purposes. But these flowers that is used for several purposes, that is used for varieties of the purposes, not grow itself without proper care given to the flower. The proper care should be given to the flower, proper look after should be given to the flower for the develop properly. Provide proper care. If we do not provide the proper environment for the flowers to grow properly, then those flowers cannot grow in the agricultural land. We'll have to bear huge amounts of loss from the floriculture. So for our business to grow properly, for the flower business to flourish properly, we should pay attention to several types of things that is needed for the flowers to grow properly. Basically, for the flowers to grow properly, we require a proper flower garden. A proper flower garden should be present for flowers to grow properly. The flowers cannot grow in each and every place. It requires huge amounts of fertile soil is needed for the flowers to grow. There are only very, very few varieties of the plants that can grow in the extreme condition of the climate or extreme altitude, similarly extreme type of soil, but most of the flowers basically very familiar. Yes or no? Sorry. Without sunlight, the plants cannot grow and develop properly. Without sunlight, the plants cannot do the photosynthetic activities. So for the photosynthetic activities, 6 hours of the sunlight should be provided to the plants, whether that is the flower or agricultural crops. Similarly, enough sources of water should be present. Enough amount of irrigation, enough amount of water should be provided to the plants so that they can grow and early. Similarly, we should also set the area that is nearer to the marketplace so that we won't face any type of problem while stopping flowers in the market area. So basically, the 4 things that is needed for the plants to grow, the 4 things that is needed for the flowers to grow properly, to grow qualitative flower, not only to increase the quantity of the flower, to grow the qualitative flower that can be easily sold in the market area, we require these 4 things, that is soil. The first thing that we require to set up a flower garden is the soil. Soil is one of the very basic needs. Everyone, not only the soil is important, the fertile soil is important for the proper growth and development of every growth in the agricultural land. So for the flower, for the ornamental plants, or for the medicinal plants also, we require proper quality of the soil. the soil that is fertile, the soil that can provide enough amount of nutrition, enough amount of minerals, or enough amount of water to the particular flowers. Then only the flowers can grow properly. Then only the flowers can develop properly. So basically, we should choose such type of soil that contain enough amounts of humus, or that contain enough amounts of organic nutrients, organic materials are present. The more the organic nutrients are present in the soil, the more the organic matter is present in the soil, enough amount of nutrients, enough amount of minerals can be supplied to the flowers or supplied to any other plants. Besides this, the organic matter that is present in the soil also helps to increase the air holding capacity. Not if the place do not get enough amount of sunlight, if the place cannot obtain 6 hours of sunlight, at least 6 sunlight, then the photosynthetic activity of the plant will be hindered. As we all are very, very familiar, the plants take water from the soil. Similarly, they take carbon dioxide from the air, and they could take the sunlight. In the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll only, the photosynthetic activity can be carried out by the particular flower. The flower can only acquire the photosynthetic activity if there is proper amount of sunlight present, or proper amount of sunlight scattered in the agricultural land. The flower or the site that obtains proper amount only in that site, the flowers can develop properly, the ornamental plants can grow and develop properly. The area should at least obtain 6 hours sunlight. The flowers to grow and develop properly, 7 to 8 hours of the sunlight is extremely important. But in case those areas cannot obtain those 7 to 8 hours of the sunlight, we should at least select the area where it obtains 6 hours of the sunlight daily, without which the plants cannot grow and develop properly. Most importantly, we should try to choose the area where sunlight can be scattered in those places. But in case if we do not find those areas, we should choose such area where we can get, or the where flowers can get at least 6 hours of sunlight for the proper growth and development of the flowers or any other ornamental plant. For this purpose, the southern part and the land is very suitable places. If we choose the southern slope, if we choose the southern and western slope of the day, up to 7 to 8 hours of sunlight, which will be enough for the plants to grow and develop properly, which will be enough for the flowers to grow and develop properly. Besides this, we should also choose such places where we can obtain enough amounts of water. It is very good to transfer the water from one place to another place. If we set up our flower garden, if we set up our floriculture garden or the flower garden in such a place where there is water, where there is lack of water, where we cannot obtain enough amount of water to irrigate the soil, to irrigate the land, flowers will wither and die without any delay. So we should choose those places. We should choose such places where we can get or obtain enough amount of water. We can have the continuous supply of the water without any difficulty. It would be very, very difficult for us to carry the water all the way from different places and supply to our flower garden. So we should select such places where irrigation would not be a problem. It could be near to the water resources side, it could be near to the well, or it could be near to the river areas. But those areas should be able to supply enough amount of water. We do not feel any difficulty in irrigation of the flowers, irrigation of the ornamental plants in our flower, so that we can easily supply sufficient water to the flower or sufficient water to the ornamental plants without any difficulty. That is why we should set up the area which is near to the well, which is near to the water spouts, or which is near to the stream area, so that we can use amount of water, we can irrigate our land without any difficulty. Besides this, the fourth one is basically optional, but if possible, we should select such places where the market area is very, very near. As we all are very, very familiar, the flowers do not have long life. We cannot keep the flower alive for longer period of time. The flower withers gradually, or the flower withers very, very quickly, unlike other vegetables, unlike other ornamental plants, or unlike other agricultural crops. The lifespan of the flower after it is harvested is very, very short. So it would be very difficult for us to transfer the flower from one place to another place to reach to a market area. So we should select such area, we should select such site as our flower garden, which is very near to area, so that once we harvest the flower, once we gather or collect the flower from our agricultural land, from our flower garden, we can directly or easily supply area without the land should be measured. Measuring a plant is important so that we can easily identify how many number of the flowers, how we divided into several parts. Different parts of the land should be made so that in each of the parts we can grow different species of the flowers. After we have done that, the area should be plowed properly. Plowing of the area is extremely necessary so that all the nutrients that remain inside the soil will be mixed up well with the soil properly, so that plants or the flowers can enough amount of nutrients while they are growing and developing. So after doing that, after dividing the land in plowing of the land should be done, or it can be reversed. We can plow the land and then we can divide the lands into various parts for the growth and development of the variety flowers. Similarly, fencing of that particular area is also very, very necessary. Fencing by any type of, or we can use any type of fences. It can be a brick wall, it can be a wire fencing, or it can be any other type of fencing. But fence is very, very important. It can protect our flowers from different varieties of the insects, as well as different types of wild animals, different types of domestic animals may roam around the nearby area. To protect our flowers from those things, fencing of the particular land is extremely important. Not only that, fencing is also important so that we can protect our flowers from the human beings themselves. As the flowers are very, very beautiful, we tend to get attracted in the flower field, and larger number of the human beings, larger number of the our neighbors may pluck the flower, and we may suffer from huge amounts of loss. So fencing basically protect that land, protect the flower garden from the human beings, from the animals, as well as from the larger varieties of the insects. So after doing that, after doing all of these things, our land is ready for the sowing of the flowers in it. We can easily plant, we can buy the saplings from the nearby nursery and transplant the saplings into our ready or into our prepared garden. Beside this, you can also check whether the enough amount of fertilizers, enough amount of manures, or enough amount of nutrients are present in the soil or not. If enough amount of nutrients are not present in the soil, we really add the organic manure in our flower garden so that later on there won't be deficiency of the nutrients for the flowers to grow and develop properly, or the ornamental plants to grow and develop properly. Here, so any problem up to here?
Ma'am.
Sure.
No, ma'am.
Are you
Yes,
sure?
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So then tell me, why do we need to nowadays we sow the seed in the agricultural land? Second is transplanting of the seedlings that we have bought from the nursery to our flower garden. So why the selection of the good seeds as well as selection of the good seedling is extremely important. While selecting the flower seed, we should consider several things. We should take into consideration about the several things. That is, the seed should be disease and insect free. The seeds that we have selected, the seeds we have bought from the nursery should be free from any type of diseases or should be free from any type of insects. If the seeds are diseased, or if the seeds consists of different varieties of the insects inside it. If the seeds basically is infected by different types of diseases, the seeds cannot grow and develop properly into a good quality of the flowers. Besides this, the seeds should be clear and pure. That means seeds should not mix with the seeds of the plant. The seeds of one plant should not be mixed with the seeds of other plants. In such cases also, the seeds cannot grow and develop properly, and we cannot obtain the good varieties of the flowers. Besides this, similar nature and colors of the seeds should be then. Color of the seeds will determine whether the seeds are diseased or not, whether the seeds are insect free or not, or whether the seeds can grow and develop properly or not. So we should always separate the seeds according to their color. Some of the colors, such as if the seeds are very, very dark in color, if they have seeds adherent its body, so such type of seeds should not be selected. Those seeds will not grow and develop properly. Besides the nature of the seeds, that is, what nature of the seeds simply means whether the seeds are particularly fresh type, depending upon the what type of seeds we are finding from the market area, depending upon that whether the seeds should be or seeds have been stored for sellers. Depending upon that, we should select the seed. Similarly, the seeds should be of the uniform size. If the seeds have different sizes, then also can grow and develop properly. Some of the seeds will grow to a huge plant. Some of the seeds cannot grow. Then it besides this, the seeds have the uniform sizes. The shadow of one plant can let the or do not let the other plants to grow and develop properly. That is why selecting the uniform size seed also is very, very important. Besides this, the higher germination capability. That means the seed should at least have 90% germination capability before we buy the seed from the market area. Only the seed with the higher germination capability will be able to hold enough amount of moisture, enough amount of water, and enough amount of nutrients, and then they can only grow and develop properly. Otherwise, the seeds will not grow and develop properly, and we will have to bear huge amount of loss. Similarly, while selecting the seedling also, we should be careful. For selecting the seedling also, the similar things should be taken into consideration. That means it should be resistant to larger amounts of diseases. If any type of disease part are present, such type of plant should not be bought, such type of seedling should not be bought. It should have use resistant to larger number of the diseases, low susceptibility to the diseases, or it should be free from any type of diseases. The leaves of the plant should be dark green in color. It should be very, very healthy. If the leaves are
Ma'am, what means susceptibility?
susceptibility, very good. Tolerance capability. Susceptibility means tolerance capability. The high tolerance capability, low susceptibility of the diseases means the chances of having diseases should be very, very low. First of all, the sapling itself should be free from diseases, and chances of having the diseases should also be very low. Similarly, the leaves of the plants also determine whether it is healthy or not. The leaves of the plant should be dark green in color. If it is yellowish in color, if the leaves have the small dots, or if the leaves have the pores in it, the type of seedling should not be bought. Similarly, it should have dense root system. Otherwise, it cannot hold the soil properly. It cannot absorb the moisture from the soil properly. Similarly, it should be able to survive for the certain period of time without the production of the water. For it should be able to survive. Otherwise, those